Everyone. My name is Coach David. We are here with Financial Aid Secrets again. Today's topic is the traps, right? There's a lot of them, right? So we're going to go over those, okay? We're going to make sure that you guys have all the information that you guys need to be armed to the teeth because this is a battle, okay? Now, let us go and talk a little bit about the agenda today, okay? Let me just make sure this is working. All right, perfect. All right, so we're going to explain a little bit about who we are, right? And then we're going to talk about some financial aid news, right, that I told you about at the beginning. There's a little bit of new news coming out, and we want to make sure that we share with our families, right? And then we're also going to talk about why families don't get the aid that they deserve, right? What are the traps? What are kind of what's the misinformation out there that people kind of get kind of lost in, right? And how to get what you deserve, okay? And then we'll also tell you about how we can help, okay? Now, first off, a little bit about who we are. We are here every single week. Okay. I think there is a couple days, or there's like one day in November, one day in December that we aren't here, just because we're taking a little time off. But we're here every single week at 6 p.m. We want to make sure that you guys have all the issues that are kind of like facing families with the financial aid delays that have happened last year and this year. And if there's anything else that is kind of not necessarily fun, but exciting about financial aid, I also want to share that with you guys as well. Okay. Now, one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is making sure that we are available to families. Okay. So if you have a question, don't feel weird about reaching out. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not sure if they're going to answer my question or not, right? Reach out to us, right? A lot of you guys probably have gotten, messages from Coach Joanna, who's in our group, messaging families that ask for replays and, ask questions, right? And if you're already one of our coaching families, reach out to us in Discord. There's a financial aid support channel, right? By email, whatever way you can reach out to us because we do want to answer your questions. Okay. Now, we have been around going on right after this year is over, after this financial aid season's over, it's going to be 16 years. Okay. So we've been here for quite a while. And our goal is to make sure that families can get to college. Okay. It's not about just getting in, it's also about paying for it, right? It's probably one of life's largest expenses other than buying your home. Okay. And so because of that, we want to make sure that families are able to save the most that they can. Okay. So we have been able to save millions of dollars for families, right? I want to make sure that your family is the next one. I can't save you millions, unfortunately, but I want to make sure that you are one of the families that does save. Okay. Now, financial aid news. So first off, right? For those that did not know, right? For the class of 2025, there is a delay. The FAFSA, they still say that it's opening on December 1st. I don't really believe that. I talked about my predictions for financial aid this year. All of them have been holding up so far. Okay. But there is something else in the news that might play a large role for our families in the years to come. And so let me kind of tell you about it. Okay. There is a lawsuit right now for those, and I'll kind of like tell you guys what to search online to find it later. But there is a lawsuit that is alleging that some elite universities, right, about 40 of them, they all acted in concert to fix the price of college, right? And take financial aid away from families that have separated parents. Okay. So I only listed a couple because I realized that if I was going to list all of them, I would need way more pages and I just don't have the time, right? But some of them include College Board, right? This has to do with the CSS profile. If you don't know about the CSS profile, we've had previous trainings about it. Make sure to go back and ask for those. Okay. But the CSS profile, the College Board, right? That information, that is kind of like what is being used by these colleges to go ahead and kind of render your financial aid award. But the lawsuit is stating that the CSS and the colleges together have acted in concert to fix prices and lower financial aid. So some of the colleges that are on that list are like Northwestern, American, Baylor, Boston College, Case Western, Duke, Fordham, George Washington, Georgetown, Harvard. There's way more. Okay. I wasn't able to list all of them here. But what are they saying? Right. So they are saying that these colleges, right, as a group, have unjustly asked for information about non-custodial parents, the parent that does not take care of the student to lower the financial aid given to those families. Now, very simply, let me kind of explain this to you. When parents separate, right, incomes are separated. It is no longer kind of like marital income, right? So let's say that there is one parent that has primary custody of a student, okay? Then that person's income should be used in order to kind of do financial aid. Let's say that both parents made $100,000 each, right? Now, for the purposes of financial aid and at one of the schools that accepts the CSS profile, even if you are a separated family, there's kind of like only one or sorry, let me start over, right? For separated families, right? On the CSS profile, they ask for the custodial parents' information. Then they also ask for the non-custodial parents' information. So technically speaking, even though one person has primary or 100% custody, right, they're asking for the information of the other parent, okay? Which brings your income from $100,000 to $200,000. Now, the difference in $100,000, especially in that range, means that your financial aid can kind of differ by anywhere between probably like $30,000 a year to $50,000 a year. Okay. So it is a huge amount of money that we're talking about over the course of 4 years. We're talking about six figures. Okay. Now, the price fixing that they're talking about, this conspiracy, has been happening for the last 18 years. Okay. And so on average, what they're saying is that students were charged $6,200 more per student per year. Okay. Now, if that's just one student, that's roughly around $25,000. Okay. And now let's think about how many kind of families that have a separated situation have gone to college during the last 18 years. Okay. This might be in the tens of hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. So if you are a family, right, and you are kind of, and where the parents are separated, right, this might mean that in the future, because now they've been sued for it, right, there might be a larger package headed your way, right? But if you want to read more about it, you can read more about it. Just search basically Forbes CSS lawsuit. It should be the first kind of news article that comes out there. Okay. So again, exciting information for me because, well, I feel like, well, they're finally getting what they deserve, right? And I hope they have to pay a huge penalty and pay those families back because they're just taking money away from families that deserve it. Okay. So again, this is something that's happening in the news right now. Okay. Now, before we go into kind of the traps and the rumors, there's just one quick thing I want to do because we are getting down to crunch time now. Okay. So there are a lot of families that have reached out to us. It's like, oh, can you help with this? Can you help with that? And we're like, yeah, we can. And then they disappear for 2 or 3 weeks. And like, oh, and then they reach out again. It's like, oh, can you help? And like, yes, we can. We told you we can. Right. And then they disappear. Okay. But this is not the time to be disappearing if your student is a class of 2025. If your student needs help on their PIQs for the UCs, their personal statement, their supplemental essays for the various colleges that you're applying to, we have the perfect solution for you. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to offer you our program. Our program, it's too late for those students, right? What the students need right now is someone to get them to the finish line with their essays. So we do have a program where we provide asynchronous feedback on essays. We actually record a video as well, provide it to students so that they can get closer to a final draft ASAP. Okay. So if you are interested in our college essay service for the class of 2025, please text essay to 415-938-8721. Okay. I will have this number again later as well, but I do want to make sure that you guys have a second to look at it, right? And then you can take a screenshot of the last slide later on. Okay. So let's get back to the training now. Okay. So before we jump into the rumors, I want to make sure that you guys see a larger picture overview of the financial aid process. Okay. So while it's not as complicated as what the picture that you see on the right, this is what you have to do in a normal year. Okay. You need to fill out the FAFSA. The FAFSA is probably something that a lot of people have heard of before, right? Again, the CSS profile. Well, we just, heard about the lawsuit about it. I don't know if they're going to shut down or what's going to happen because of it, but they're still open right now. So that's another thing that needs to get filled out. There's also a system called IDOC, which is also run by College Board that needs to get done for some schools. There are school-specific forms, there's verification forms, and then there's also additional forms per school. So depending on which colleges you're applying to, you might need to kind of fill out one of these, or you might need to fill out all of these things, right? Per school. Okay. So it is something that is quite a complicated and drawn out process. Okay. So let us talk, right, about kind of like this key point, right? When you're doing your financial aid, This is not about anybody else. It's about your family. It is about your student. Okay. So one of the things that I will say here is that you cannot let other people's kind of opinions influence your decision. Okay. This is a complicated decision. Do not listen to what other people are saying and what they have gone through with their one kid before, right? Because things change every year, and that person might have had a different experience because of a different thing in their life, right? So you need to shut your ears to the basic, like random noises around you, what your neighbor says, what your cousin's grandma's, second aunt said, right? If you have any questions, you can ask us. That's why we have a Q&A at the end of every session. Some people ask very pointed questions, and I'm here to answer them. It's kind of no holds bar. I will tell you all the information that you need. Okay. So make sure, don't listen to people that haven't gone through this. I have myself personally gone through this probably over 12,000 times. Okay. With all of our students, with renewals, so on and so forth. Okay. So make sure that you are listening to someone that has done this basically as a profession for the last decade and a half. Okay. Now, the one thing I did want to kind of bring up here is that everyone is worried about kind of the rising cost of college. Okay. And that's why financial aid is such kind of like a big kind of deal because we want to make sure that we can afford everything. Right. That's not, I'm not sure why we have those. But anyway, right? It is good information, right? Now, the financial aid, it is lagging, okay? And what I mean by it's lagging is that it's not rising at the levels that people need in order to make college affordable again, okay? One of the kind of examples I always bring up is that parents, think back to when you were in college. You might not even remember what your college tuition was, but realistically, if you worked part-time and did this and did that, you might have been able to afford going to your college. Nowadays, it's close to impossible, right? You need to have like a full-time, like well-paying job to even like break even at the end of the year if you're a student, okay? But, right, federal standards, right, state standards, these things, they're not rising fast enough, okay? Now, let us go on to talk about some of the rumors that I've heard before. Now, I'm going to go through a list of rumors very quickly, and then I'm going to focus in on some of the more prevalent ones so that I can debunk them for you. Okay. So let's talk about it, right? The biggest one that I always hear is we make too much money, right? Another one is financial aid is only for low-income families, right? Applying for financial aid will hurt my chances of getting to college. Applying for financial aid is a one-time process, right? Financial aid awards will be the same at every school, okay? I also hear things like financial aid. Okay, well, we already had that one, right? You need perfect grades to get financial aid. The FAFSA is too difficult, time-consuming to fill out, right? I have to pay back all the financial aid I receive, right? Financial aid offers are non-negotiable, right? I can't get financial aid because I'm an independent student, right? Applying for financial aid will hurt my chances, right? Only students with no other options should apply for financial aid, right? If you get a scholarship, you can't get any other financial aid, right? You can't get financial aid if you're going to school part-time, right? Community college students don't need to apply for financial aid. And also international students cannot apply for financial aid, right? Again, page 4, right? There's just so many, right? If my parents are undocumented, I can't apply for financial aid. If I live on my own, I'm automatically considered an independent student, right? Taking out student loans will ruin my credit, right? So here are the things, right? Okay. So we have Mr. Rogers on the right. Hopefully all parents, right? You remember Mr. Rogers, right? But, right? Mr. Rogers might be your neighbor, right? You literally might have someone like Mr. Rogers. He's just happy all the time. He loves everybody in the neighborhood, right? He might be a really good person, right? But how many students has he sent to college, right? I don't know. Maybe he has 15 kids, right? And he's gone through it 15 times. He might have a better idea, right, of kind of the financial aid process. But, right, with most families having one, two, three, maybe four, maybe five kids, right? How much do you really know about the process, right? So the one thing I will say is do not rely on non-expert information to make your decisions, right? So again, one of the things that we said about our program is that we want you to be engaged with us. Ask us questions, right? You might feel like you're being like obnoxious or like, like, oh my God, I'm taking up too much of their time. We don't care. We want you to have the information. So please, please, please ask for it. All we want you to do is be able to make an informed decision, right? Remember, right? Not all neighbors are good neighbors, right? I'm sure they're great people, right? But they're not financial aid experts. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm going to unravel some of the more prevalent ones that we hear kind of like on a daily basis through our consultations. Okay. The first one is this, right? And I always joke around at this, right? But realistically, right? A lot of our families come into our program, right? They have their consultation and they're like, man, we make too much money to get financial aid. And I'm like, who told you that? And usually the answer is like, oh, like my cousin, right? We make around the same amount. Or, oh, my neighbor. That's what I always hear, right? Now, if you have one of these Italian stallions, right, parked in your driveway, then maybe yes, you do make too much money, right? But if you do not have one of these, right, I'm shooting it for myself, right? I'm obviously shooting for it myself, right? One day, right, we'll have one parked in the driveway, right? But right now, not yet, right? But if this is not you, right, then you're probably making enough money, right? But it's not usually enough to pay $100,000 private school bill without batting an eye, right? So families all have different lifestyles, spending habits, right? The general thought that you make too much money is not real, okay? Now, for families that are like, you know what, I might be one of those, like, yeah, we don't have a Ferrari in the driveway, but we could afford one if we did this and did that, right? Okay, let me give you kind of like a small marker, right? If your family's making over $750,000 a year, I probably can't help you, right? If you're making under that, I probably can. Okay. So again, the idea that you make too much money is not a real thing to me. Okay. The second thing is that applying for financial aid will hurt my chances of getting into college. Okay. Now, a lot of people don't understand this. There are two separate kind of like processes that happen when you apply to college. Okay. The first one is they see if you're in or not, right? Do you have the merit to get in, right? And then once they decide yes, right, then it gets moved over to the financial aid office to calculate your financial aid award, right? Now, a lot of people might be thinking, oh my God, Coach David, you didn't even tell us about the need aware colleges. Let me tell you this, okay? There are colleges that are called need aware. They take your ability to pay into kind of the calculations of whether they're going to accept you or not. But let me tell you the real case. All of my students that have gotten into need aware colleges, and there are some top 20 colleges that are need aware, have all gotten financial aid. So what does that show you? It shows you that that is not the reason why you're not getting in. Okay. Need aware just means that they're a little bit more critical about how they're spending their money each year. Okay. That is all. Okay. The third is that financial aid awards will be the same at every single school. Now, because I'm in California, I will talk about the UCs and CSUs. So if you get financial aid from the UCs and the CSUs, they will be very similar because they're controlled by the UC regents. Okay. So wherever you go, you'll get roughly the same amount, plus or minus a couple $100s, right? But generally speaking, let's just take private schools, for instance. Let's say that you get into NYU, you get into Emory, and then you get into like Santa Clara, okay, University, right? Those three schools are going to be very different, okay, depending on a lot of different factors, right? Because they look at different things from your financial aid kind of paperwork to make their decisions, okay? Now, at one school like NYU, now I know I've always bashed on these schools, but unfortunately, it's true. NYU and USC are two of the stingiest schools I've ever seen when it comes to financial aid. So if your student is thinking about applying to those schools, I'm sorry, but know that there are probably opportunities. It's just not as much as other schools. So let's say that you got $10,000 at NYU, right? And then at Emory, they decide to give you 23,000. And at Santa Clara, they decide to give you 37. Okay. Now, in those situations, they are going to be different, but you can't really ask them to be like, okay, well, I want you to match my offer, right? Unfortunately, right, one of the rumors that we talked about was that, like, oh, financial aid awards are final. They're not final. You definitely can kind of like negotiate, but the schools that you're looking at need to be very comparable. Now, in the case of like, let's say at Santa Clara, we got kind of like $37,000. At NYU, we got $10,000. Now, as far as NYU is concerned, Santa Clara is not their competition. Okay. So they won't really budge. Now, Emory, much closer school to them as far as kind of like ranking and prestige, they might budge because of Emory. Okay. So the schools that you're looking at, you need to make sure that they're comparable. Okay. Another one that we get is kind of like, I'm an independent student, so I can get more financial aid, right? Now, unfortunately, parents, right? I'm sure that a lot of kind of like, parents with college age kids, right? One of your biggest worries is that your student is going to live at home forever, right? And they're going to take over your basement. You're never going to be able to get that workout room that you really wanted, right? And there's a lot of kids out there. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to leave home as soon as possible too, right? Unfortunately, parents, for the purposes of financial aid, your student does not become an actual adult or independent unless one of these four things happens either before or while they're in college. Okay. So the first one is if they get married, okay, then they will be considered independent. Okay. The second is if they're legally emancipated from their parents before the age of 18, then they will be considered independent, right? The other is that you have to be over the age of 24. Okay. Now, hopefully, our students aren't in college until 24, right? But you never know, right? And then the fourth way is to have completed your bachelor's degree before, like, if you complete your bachelor's degree, like at that point, you are considered independent. Okay. So these are the four ways to become independent. But if you actually think about each and every single one of them, it doesn't really help you. So unfortunately, parents, at least until age 24 or until they graduate from college, you're stuck with them. Okay. So just keep in mind that, again, if you do want to try to have your students be independent, there are ways, but sometimes it is more difficult and costs more money than you'll actually be saving. Okay. Another one is this, right? Um, that only US citizens and parents can apply for financial aid. That is absolutely false, right? If you are a permanent resident of the United States, right, a green card holder, you are eligible, right? Even if even if just your student is a green card holder or a US citizen, you can apply for financial aid. It is the student status in the United States, not the parents, that matters. Okay. Now, there's a question in the Q&A here, and it's kind of related, so I will answer this question, okay? So the question is, will a student who is on a H-4 visa be eligible for student loans? Unfortunately, the answer here is no, okay? The reason why it is no, even though I told you that like one of these things needs to happen, an H-4 is a non-immigrant visa, okay? And so for a non-immigrant visa, they will not allow student loans. Actually, what needs to happen, right? And this kind of is the situation for every kind of international student. When you're applying as an international student to the colleges, the thing that parents you do need to show is that you need to show a certificate of finances. Okay. Now, what a certificate of finances is, it is basically you showing a bank account with at least 1 year's full cost of attendance available in that account. Okay. Now, I know you're not going to be paying it all at once, right? If they're on a quarter system, you're going to pay it over three times, like, or broken up into three times over the year. If you're a semester, you're going to pay half now and then half in the spring, right? But you need to show an account that has that much money available. Okay. So unfortunately, student loans won't be available for H4 kind of families. Okay. Other kind of rumors, right? Some of the big ones that I hear, right? Private schools will always be more expensive, even with financial aid, right? So I have dozens of families that go to private school each year, and it's cheaper than going to a UC or a CSU, right? I'm in California, right? So it all depends on your situation, but your cost to go to private school or public school may even be the same as a public school or be cheaper, right? So we have the beautiful Stanford campus here, right? So just real quickly, let's say that your family makes under $150,000 a year. Your tuition is free. So to go to Stanford, you would pay $25,000 a year, right? Now, let's say that you made 150, let's say you made $140,000, right? Again, tuition's free, so you would pay $25,000 a year to go to Stanford. But that same family, if they were going to a UC, they would have to pay $30,000 a year. Okay. So it actually becomes cheaper to go to Stanford. And I know everyone's thinking, well, yeah, of course, if we got into Stanford, right? But again, you have to plan for all possibilities. Okay. All right. Additionally, a big rumor, and one that I even answered today, is that financial aid deadlines are the same for every school. Everyone's like, oh yeah, well, it's due by this time. And I'm like, no, it's not. Okay. You need to make sure that you are checking every single school when their deadlines are, okay? Especially this year because of all the delays that are happening with FAFSA. Whether you're applying early or regular or this or that, your deadlines might be very different and the requirements might also be very different as well, right? So be aware and wary of when things are due, okay? So one of the things I want to do now is kind of give you my quick takeaways, okay? So there's a huge bucket of money out there. It's literally just sitting out there. It's like, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? No one touches it, okay? And so the rumors and misinformation that we talked about above, that's why people do not get the help that they need to pay for college, right? If there's anyone out there that is happy to write a $50,000 check to the UCs to go there, if there's anyone out there that is happy to write a $100,000 check to go to a private school, please kind of like, well, you can exit, right? But for those that want to kind of find that money, I'm here to help kind of like guide you to it. Okay. So again, I bring up this point so many times, but it's not up to your neighbor to pay the college bill that comes to you. Okay. So don't listen to them, right? A lot of people when they're doing kind of like or buying things, right? They research, right? I've seen my own dad, right? When he's buying a new car, he sits there for 3 months, right? And he looks, right? Where can I get the best deal, right? He calls this place, right? Leaves them alone for a little bit and then comes back to them, goes to this place, researches kind of like the wear and tear of different tires that he's going to put on the car, does all these things. But now that I think about it, he didn't do a lot of research when he was sending me to college because if I really think about it, we could have saved a lot of money. Okay. So here's the thing. We've done that research. We're willing to tell you. All you have to do is reach out to us. Okay. All right. So as we say, don't do this on your own. Make sure you're prepared for what college costs, right? Learn how to save, right? And most of all, you need to talk with us. Okay. So I'm going to put the link to kind of have a consultation with us in the chat, right? But before I get there, I want to give you guys some success stories. Okay. Now, last year, I have a student, right? It cost $93,000 to go to UPenn for 1 year. Okay. That includes tuition, housing, food, books, transportation, yada, 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 all those different things, right? This was the family, right? Five-person family, right? Family made around $326,000. Family assets north of 1.4 million. Okay. The free money that we got for this student was $44,000 a year. We also got them loans. We don't really count the loans in the money that we save you. They're just there, right? I wanted to show you that they're there. So we saved them just under $50,000. This student is going to UPenn for the cost of going to a UC. Okay. I have this student here, right? Their family size is four, right? Their income, right, under $200,000, $700,000 in assets, right? I was able to get them $18,000 in free money, $5,500 in loans. Their total cost of attendance to go to UCLA is just over $17,000. Okay, that means that they're paying like $5,800 for like semester, like quarter one, 5,800 for quarter two, 5,800 for quarter three. That's literally all the money that is going into it. Okay. And then my alma mater, the Claremont Colleges, right around $90,000. Family's income was around 225. The assets right over 600, right? I was able to get them a total, right, free money and then their loans, right, just about $63,000. So they're going to a private school, right, a highly ranked private school for just $26,000 a year. That's it. It's cheaper for this family to go to this school versus going to a CSU. Okay. So again, these aren't just made up things. These are the actual results from our last year. Okay. So as we're getting to the end here, again, if you're interested in our college essay service, please text essay to 415-938-8721. If you want to sign up for a consultation, and most of those 11th grade families, this is the perfect time to do it because the tax return year that's important for you is going to be the 2024 tax return. Okay. So keep that in mind, right? Even if you're a younger family, this is the perfect time because our prices are not getting any cheaper, unfortunately. Okay. So they'll continue to go up. So if you can lock in your price now, that's perfect. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat. You can also use the QR code on the screen in order to book your consultation as well. Okay. But one of the things that I always love to do is have a little quick Q&A session at the end so that families can ask the questions that they have. Okay. So I do see a kind of like a record-breaking number of people in here today, right? I think it might have been my announcement that I have some other news, right? So yeah, CSS College Board and a bunch of colleges are getting sued, right? But I do want to open up for Q&A so that I can answer you guys' questions, okay? Now, you might not really kind of have any questions right now, right? But if you do later, again, Facebook, right? Text message, right? Email, Discord, wherever, just make sure to reach out to us, okay? So I'll give people a little time to go ahead and ask their questions. And for those that need to go on to their next thing, thank you guys for joining us today, okay? Perfect. All right, so we have a question in the Q&A here, right? And it says, when they're looking at income, what are they looking at, right? Are they looking at AGI? So yes, they are looking at your AGI. So if you're looking at your tax return from last year or this or that, they're looking at the first line that they're going to look at is line 11 on your 1040. Okay, that's what they're going to use for their initial calculations. Okay. Now, obviously, that number is going to change based on the taxes you pay and other schedules that you have and this and that, so on and so forth. But that is kind of the number that they use. Okay. Oh, and so I do see a couple of people already signed up for a consultation here. Um, One of the things that I want to make sure that you guys understand is that during the consultation, I will be asking you about your family's financial situation, right? So if you have a copy of your tax return, that's great, right? So you can kind of tell me those numbers. If you could also get like a rough estimate of what your assets look like, right? And a lot of people might be like, "Oh my God, why are you asking about my assets? Why are you trying to kind of like, know everything about my life?" And it's because in financial aid, they literally dive into your life. Okay. They will ask you about your retirement accounts. And a lot of people might be saying right now, "Oh my God, no, they're not supposed to look at retirement." They ask. Okay. They're going to be looking at other investments. They're going to be looking at rental property income. They're going to be looking at kind of dividends from stocks, right? They're going to be looking at everything, right? And so depending on the school that you're looking into, that's why I said there might be one form that you fill out, or there might be 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 forms that you fill out. So it's really, really important that you kind of have that information at your fingertips. Obviously, you can give me ranges, right? And then I'll try to give you as much kind of specific information as possible. But if you have it, then I think it's obviously better to have. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions. So we'll kind of close it down for tonight, right? So once again, make sure that you have this link with you, right? Make sure you take a screenshot of this screen. If you are an 11th grader, this is the time to sign up for a consultation. It's not next year, right? When they're a senior and then it's October again, right? This is the time. For our financial aid program, we actually start during the summer, right? We need to get a lot of information from you. We need your tax returns. We need you to kind of give us all your information about assets and things like that. There might be 529s that we need to check on, right? So on and so forth. Okay. We have another question here and says, when does FAFSA open? So they're saying that it's supposed to open on December 1st, but do I have faith in that? No, I don't. Not at all, right? Now we'll see if we're right or wrong, right? But I don't think it's going to open then, right? Last year they said it was going to open on December 1st. It didn't open on December 1st. It actually opened on December 28th. Okay. So I think it's going to be delayed again this year. Okay. All right. Perfect. Perfect. So, we have a question and it says, I accidentally started the 2024 one. How do I close it out? You should be able to delete it if you didn't submit it, right? And then kind of start fresh, right? But before you turn it in or do anything or touch anything, please sign up for a consultation right away because we want to make sure that you are doing the right things. Okay. Now, our fees, right? There's also a question about our fees. Okay. We talk about our fees in the meeting, right? Because we have different discounts running at different times for different families, right? So if you can sign up for the consultation, we can definitely let you know what that is. Okay. All right. Perfect, perfect. Okay, so thank you guys for joining us today, right? We'll be back next week. Hopefully there's no like new lawsuit news or kind of like other exciting news because that means like everything's kind of just like status quo, right? But if there is, I will make sure to kind of let you guys know what's going on and keep you guys in the loop. Okay. So thanks for joining me today, right? And kind of spending a little bit of your evening with me. We'll be back next week. And if you do have any questions, please, please, please just reach out to us. We are happy to help. Okay. So I'll see you guys all again next week, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.